For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. Continual improvement is a standalone process that applies only to incident management. Answer: false. ITIL promotes a practical improvement model to help organizations remain resilient and agile. Answer: true. Continual improvement supports every component of the ITIL SVS. Answer: true. The continual improvement model is designed to address short-term changes only. False. Now let's go ahead and explain each of these answers for clarity and deeper understanding. To begin, the idea that continual improvement is a standalone process that applies only to incident management is false. In reality, continual improvement is not restricted to any one practice. Instead, it's a holistic approach embedded across all areas of service management in ITIL. It supports the entire service value system, not just incidents. Next, ITIL does promote a practical improvement model that helps organizations stay resilient and agile. This is true. The continual improvement model provides structured steps such as defining the vision, assessing the current state, and taking action, all tailored to support adaptability and ongoing growth. Likewise, it's true that continual improvement supports every component of the ITIL service value system. It's not confined to a corner of the framework, but rather acts as a connecting thread through practices, governance, the guiding principles, and beyond. Finally, the notion that the continual improvement model is designed only for short-term changes is false. While short-term wins are valuable, the model is equally suited for long-term strategic planning. Think of it like upgrading a system today for immediate benefit while also laying the groundwork for scalability and innovation tomorrow. So remember, continual improvement in ITIL isn't an isolated task, it's a culture. How does tailoring a product for different consumer groups add value in service management? Select one answer. A, it ensures that each consumer group receives a customized version of the product that meets their needs. B, it reduces the complexity of the product, making it easier to manufacture. C, it limits the number of consumers who can use the product, thereby simplifying service delivery. D, it forces all consumers to use the same version of the product to ensure uniformity. Correct answer is A. It ensures that each consumer group receives a customized version of the product that meets their needs. Now, let's dive into the explanation. To begin with, A is correct because tailoring products for different consumer groups adds value by ensuring that each group gets a version of the product that is best suited to their needs. For example, a software company might offer versions of their product for small businesses, large enterprises, and individual consumers, ensuring each gets the features and functions that serve them best. On the other hand, B is incorrect. Tailoring a product doesn't always reduce complexity. In fact, customization often requires more complexity, as it involves adjusting features or adding different configurations for different users. Similarly, C is wrong. Customizing a product increases the number of options available to consumers, which provides more flexibility rather than limiting who can use the product. Finally, D is incorrect. Tailoring a product means offering specific versions for different groups, which is the opposite of forcing all consumers to use the same version. In summary, tailoring products to meet the specific needs of different consumer groups enhances satisfaction and effectiveness, making the service management process more efficient and personalized. Match each service relationship component to its correct description. Activities performed by the provider to deliver services and manage resources. Correct match, service provision. Activities performed by the consumer to use services and manage their resources. Correct match, service consumption. Joint activities to ensure the ongoing value co-creation between provider and consumer. Correct match, service relationship management. The outcome of a well-managed service relationship where both parties contribute to the value created. Correct match, value co-creation. Now let's dive into the explanation. First, service provision refers to the activities performed by the service provider. This includes managing infrastructure, processes, and resources to ensure that services meet agreed-upon requirements. For example, a cloud service provider manages the data centers and ensures that services like storage or compute power are available to users. Service consumption refers to the activities performed by the consumer. In this case, the consumer initiates and manages the use of the service, including configuring and handling their data. In the cloud example, the consumer would be responsible for uploading data, configuring their environment, and ensuring the service is aligned with their needs. Next, service relationship management focuses on the joint activities performed by both the provider and the consumer. These activities ensure that the relationship remains strong, productive, and mutually beneficial. It involves regular communication, feedback sessions, and alignment on goals and expectations. For instance, the cloud provider and consumer might hold meetings to discuss performance or issues and adjust the service to meet emerging needs. Finally, value co-creation occurs when both the provider and consumer actively collaborate, leading to the creation of value for both parties. This is the ultimate goal of a well-managed service relationship. A good example is when both the provider and consumer contribute to improving service features based on ongoing feedback and usage. The unused items were service quality management. This focuses on the quality of the service but does not directly define service provision or consumption in the relationship. Customer satisfaction measurement. While important for tracking how well a service is received, it is not part of the core service relationship process. Which of the following are risks removed by the service in the context of service provision? Select two answers. A, the failure of the consumer's server hardware. B, security breaches caused by the service provider. C, lack of consumer staff availability. D, failure to meet service level agreements, SLAs. Correct answers: A, the failure of the consumer server hardware, and C, lack of consumer staff availability. Now let's dive into the explanation. First, the failure of the consumer's server hardware is a risk that can be removed by the service provider, especially if the provider manages the infrastructure. For example, in cloud services, the provider takes responsibility for the hardware, which means the consumer doesn't have to worry about hardware failure. Next, lack of consumer staff availability is another risk that can be alleviated by the service provider. If the provider handles certain tasks like maintenance or provides 24/7 support, it removes the risk of the consumer needing to ensure staff availability for those functions. However, security breaches caused by the service provider is a risk that would be imposed on the consumer if it happens, not one that the provider removes. Security breaches are typically the responsibility of the provider, but they create a risk for the consumer, not a removed one. Similarly, failure to meet service level agreements, SLAs, is also a risk for the consumer. If the provider fails to meet the agreed upon SLAs, it poses a risk for the consumer, and the provider is responsible for this, not removing it. In summary, the risks removed by the service are the failure of the consumer's server hardware and lack of consumer staff availability, as these are managed and taken care of by the provider. A company wants to improve the outcomes achieved by its customers through the services it provides. The IT manager proposes enhancing service management capabilities. What are two justifiable benefits this could offer the organization? Select two answers. A, it allows the company to remove all customer involvement in service delivery. B, it helps the company understand the value and outcomes its services enable. C, it shifts all service-related responsibilities to external suppliers. D, it enables the company to manage associated costs and risks effectively. Correct answers. B, it helps the company understand the value and outcomes its services enable. And D, it enables the company to manage associated costs and risks effectively. Now let's dive into the explanation. First, it helps the company understand the value and outcomes its services enable. Enhancing service management capabilities allows the company to better align services with the outcomes its customers are looking to achieve. This understanding ensures that the company can improve customer satisfaction and provide services that truly deliver value. Next, it enables the company to manage associated costs and risks effectively. A key part of service management is overseeing the costs and risks involved in delivering services. By improving service management capabilities, the company can identify potential risks, control costs, and ensure that the delivery of services remains efficient and effective. On the other hand, A is incorrect. Removing all customer involvement is not a benefit of service management. In fact, value is co-created with customers, and their involvement is essential for achieving the best outcomes. Similarly, C is incorrect. While external suppliers can play a role in service delivery, service management remains an internal capability. It helps manage and coordinate both internal and external resources to ensure the best outcomes for the customer. In conclusion, enhancing service management capabilities helps the company align services with customer needs and manage the associated costs and risks effectively, ultimately leading to better outcomes for customers. What are valid reasons for adopting the ITIL guiding principles when improving organizational culture? Select two answers. A, they promote shared values aligned with service management goals. They help automate service delivery without human involvement. C, they increase standardization across IT hardware platforms. D, they encourage trust, collaboration, and transparency. Correct answers: A, they promote shared values aligned with service management goals, and D, they encourage trust, collaboration, and transparency. Now, let's dive into the explanation. First, they promote shared values aligned with service management goals. ITIL guiding principles help establish a unified culture by promoting values that align with service management goals. By emphasizing principles such as customer focus and continual improvement, these values foster collaboration and ensure that everyone is working toward the same objectives, driving the organization's success. Next, they encourage trust, collaboration, and transparency. Adopting these guiding principles leads to a culture where open communication and mutual respect thrive. This is essential for fostering a healthy work environment and improving service outcomes. When team members trust each other and share information transparently, it strengthens collaboration, which is critical for effective service delivery. On the other hand, B is incorrect. Automation of service delivery is not directly related to ITIL guiding principles. While automation can play a role in improving efficiency, it's not a cultural principle that improves organizational behavior. Similarly, C is incorrect. ITIL guiding principles do not focus on standardizing IT hardware platforms. Instead, they are about aligning the organization's culture with service management practices to achieve better service outcomes and customer satisfaction. In conclusion, adopting the ITIL guiding principles fosters shared values and a collaborative, transparent culture, which is key to improving both organizational culture and service delivery. Fill in the blanks by selecting the correct options from the drop-down menus. To remain viable, organizations must assess whether new technologies introduce regulatory risks and whether they align with service strategy. Now let's break this down. First, regulatory risks is the correct term here. When an organization adopts new technologies, it must ensure that they comply with industry-specific laws, regulations, and standards. For example, a healthcare company needs to ensure that any new technology they use complies with healthcare data protection regulations such as HIPAA. Next, service strategy is the right choice. For technology to be truly effective, it must align with the organization's overall strategy. This means the technology should support long-term goals and deliver value, ensuring that it is a worthwhile investment. For instance, a company might adopt AI technology to improve customer service, but only if it aligns with the organization's goal to enhance customer experience and operational efficiency. On the other hand, user behavior, licensing format, and network design are all important considerations, but are not as relevant in this context. They don't directly address the critical need for compliance with regulations or alignment with strategic goals. In summary, adopting new technologies involves assessing whether they create regulatory risks and ensuring they align with the company's service strategy for sustainable success. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. Value streams should be continually reviewed and adjusted to meet changing business needs. True. Once a value stream is created, it should remain unchanged for consistency. Answer: false. Organizations should define value streams only for major services, not individual products. False. Emerging technologies can play a role in value stream optimization. Answer: true. Now, let's go ahead and explain each of these answers. First, Value streams should be continually reviewed and adjusted to meet changing business needs is true. Value streams are not static. They need to evolve as customer demands and business goals change. For example, if a company shifts its focus from local customers to a global market, the value stream needs to adapt to ensure it delivers the right value efficiently across different regions. Next, once a value stream is created, it should remain unchanged for consistency is false. Stagnant value streams limit the ability to respond to improvement opportunities. Think of it like a product that's not updated in years. It may no longer meet the current market needs, which could cause it to fall behind competitors. Similarly, a value stream must adapt to remain relevant and efficient. Organizations should define value streams only for major services, not individual products, is also false. Value streams should be defined for each product or service, regardless of its scale. Even for smaller products, defining a value stream ensures that every product is optimized for delivery, creating a more efficient and responsive organization. Lastly, emerging technologies can play a role in value stream optimization is true. Technologies like AI and automation are critical in modern service optimization. For instance, AI can enhance decision-making processes, and automation can help reduce manual tasks, making the value stream more efficient and able to meet business needs faster. In summary, value streams need to be reviewed, optimized for all products, and supported by emerging technologies to ensure they remain effective and aligned with the company's goals. A telecom company is trying to standardize how customer complaints are received and resolved. They define a repeatable sequence of steps, assign staff roles, and document each step with specific work instructions. What best describes the company's approach? Select one answer. A. Creating a support policy. B. Developing a value stream. C. Establishing a process. D. Building a data model. Answer C. Establishing a process. Now, let's go ahead and explain the reasoning behind this answer. First, establishing a process is the correct answer. The company is creating a repeatable sequence of steps for handling customer complaints, and they are assigning roles and providing specific instructions for each step. This is what we call a process. Processes are structured workflows designed to ensure consistency and efficiency. For example, in a customer service context, a process might outline how to log a complaint, escalate an issue, and follow up with the customer. Next, creating a support policy is incorrect because a policy defines the rules or guidelines for behavior but does not define specific steps or actions. While a support policy might outline the rules for handling complaints, it doesn't go into detail about the step-by-step actions or the roles of individuals, which is the focus here. Developing a value stream is also incorrect in this context. A value stream is typically used to map how value is delivered across multiple activities, looking at the entire service delivery process. In this case, the company is focusing on a specific workflow for complaints, not the larger value chain. Finally, building a data model is unrelated. A data model is used to define how data is structured and stored, but it doesn't describe the sequence of actions involved in service delivery like we see here. In summary, the company is establishing a process to ensure that customer complaints are handled systematically and consistently, with clear roles and instructions for each step. Fill in the blanks by selecting the correct options from the drop-down menus. A failure to integrate improvements across all dimensions may result in services becoming undeliverable or inefficient. Now let's go ahead and explain the reasoning behind this answer. First, undeliverable is the correct term here. When a failure occurs to integrate improvements across all necessary dimensions, such as people, processes, or technology, the service may become impossible to deliver. For instance, if a tech upgrade is ignored and not integrated into the service might no longer function as intended, making it undeliverable. Next, inefficient is also the correct choice. If improvements aren't integrated correctly, the service might still be deliverable, but at a higher cost or with reduced quality. In this case, lack of coordination in optimizing resources can lead to poor performance and inefficiency. For example, without effective coordination between the technical and customer service teams, the service might become slow or have delays. On the other hand, inflexible isn't quite the right fit here, as it doesn't capture the core issue of deliverability or efficiency. Similarly, automated and encrypted are tools or features, not outcomes resulting from poor integration of improvements, and complete doesn't address the service failures discussed in this context. In summary, failure to integrate improvements across all dimensions of a service can lead to the service being undeliverable or inefficient, which can ultimately hinder the organization's ability to deliver quality services. Which components make up the PESTLE model of external factors? Select three answers: A, legal; B, technological; C, financial; D. Correct answers are A, legal; B, technological; D, environmental. Now, let's go ahead and explain the reasoning behind this answer. First, legal is correct because the L in PESTLE stands for legal factors. These refer to the laws and regulations that affect an organization, such as employment laws, health and safety regulations, and consumer protection laws. For instance, a company operating in different countries must comply with local laws, and failing to do so could result in legal penalties. Next, technological is also correct. The T in PESTLE refers to technological factors, which include advancements in technology, innovation, and how new technologies can impact an industry. For example, the rise of automation and artificial intelligence could disrupt certain industries, requiring businesses to adapt. Environmental is the third correct answer. The E in PESTLE refers to environmental factors, which include concerns about sustainability, climate change, and how environmental issues impact an organization's operations. For example, a company might need to comply with environmental regulations or adapt to changing weather patterns affecting their supply chain. On the other hand, financial is incorrect because it's not a direct category in the PESTLE model. Finance would fall under the economic category, which focuses on factors like interest rates, inflation, and economic growth, rather than just financial concerns. In summary, the PESTLE model includes legal, technological, and environmental factors, which help businesses understand external influences and adapt their strategies accordingly. A company offers a service that requires collaboration between the service provider and consumer, where both parties contribute to defining the service requirements and delivering the final value. What does this scenario illustrate about service relationships in the ITIL SVS? A. The service provider performs all activities and the consumer only receives the value. The service relationship is a one-way interaction where only the consumer defines the value. C. Both the service provider and the consumer cooperate to co-create value through their interaction. D. The provider and consumer roles are fixed and do not change over time. Correct answer is C. Both the service provider and the consumer cooperate to co-create value through their interaction. Now let's go ahead and explain the reasoning behind this answer. First, both the service provider and the consumer cooperate to co-create value through their interaction is the correct answer. In this scenario, the provider and consumer work together to define the service requirements and deliver value, which reflects the collaborative nature of service relationships in the ITIL Service Value System, SVS. Both parties play an active role in creating and delivering value, ensuring that the service aligns with the consumer's needs. Next, the service provider performs all activities and the consumer only receives the value is incorrect because it suggests a one-sided relationship where the provider does all the work and the consumer simply receives the value. However, in the ITIL SVS, value creation is a cooperative effort, not a passive receiving action by the consumer. The service relationship is a one-way interaction where only the consumer defines the value is also incorrect. Value is co-created, meaning both the provider and the consumer have a role in defining and achieving the desired outcomes, rather than the consumer solely determining what value looks like. Lastly, the provider and consumer roles are fixed and do not change over time is incorrect. In reality, both parties can switch roles depending on the context. For instance, a company might be a consumer of one service and a provider of another. In summary, the ITIL SVS emphasizes a cooperative co-creation approach where both the service provider and the consumer contribute to defining and delivering value. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. Continual improvement is an ongoing process that helps organizations meet stakeholder expectations. Answer: true improvement is only relevant after a service is fully operational. Answer: false. Continual improvement helps organizations adapt and stay competitive. Answer: continual improvement is primarily concerned with reducing the organization's operating costs. Answer. Now let's go ahead and explain the reasoning behind each of these answers. First, continual improvement is an ongoing process that helps organizations meet stakeholder expectations, is true. Continual improvement is designed to help organizations align their services with changing stakeholder expectations, ensuring that services remain relevant and effective over time. For example, as customer preferences evolve, continual improvement ensures that the service adapts to meet these new needs. Next, continual improvement is only relevant after a service is fully operational is false. Continual improvement is not limited to the operational phase of a service. It should begin before the service is fully operational and continue throughout its lifecycle. Even in the planning and design stages, continual improvement can ensure the service is set up to meet long-term goals. Continual improvement helps organizations adapt and stay competitive is true. By continually improving services, organizations can stay competitive in an ever-changing market. For example, a tech company that continuously updates its software based on customer feedback will stay relevant and competitive in the market. Finally, continual improvement is primarily concerned with reducing the organization's operating costs is false. While cost reduction can be an outcome of continual improvement, the primary goal is to enhance value delivery, not just reduce costs. For example, improving a customer service process can increase efficiency, but its main focus is on providing better customer experiences rather than cutting costs. In summary, continual improvement is a key component in adapting services to meet stakeholder expectations, staying competitive, and enhancing overall value delivery. Which of the following Agile practices can be combined with ITIL to improve service delivery and value creation? Select to answer. A. Time boxing work into manageable increments. B. Creating rigid, long-term service contracts with customers. C. Implementing self-organizing teams for service development. D. Limiting customer involvement to only initial project stages. Correct answers are A. Time boxing work into manageable increments. C. Implementing self-organizing teams for service development. Now let's go ahead and explain the reasoning behind these answers. First, time boxing work into manageable increments is correct. Time boxing is a technique used in Agile to break work into smaller, more manageable chunks, which can improve service delivery by making tasks more achievable within a fixed time frame. For example, by breaking down a project into smaller, time-limited tasks, teams can quickly deliver results and iterate based on feedback, aligning well with ITIL's focus on continual improvement. Next, implementing self-organizing teams for service development is also correct. In Agile, self-organizing teams take responsibility for their tasks and collaborate effectively to solve problems. This promotes flexibility, quick decision-making, and collaboration, traits that can greatly enhance service delivery. By applying this practice, teams can adapt quickly to changing requirements, improving service outcomes, which aligns with ITIL's emphasis on delivering value through collaboration and flexibility. Creating rigid, long-term service contracts with customers is incorrect because it contradicts Agile principles. Agile emphasizes flexibility and responsiveness to change, while rigid contracts lock in fixed terms that limit the ability to adapt. Limiting customer involvement to only initial project stages is also incorrect. Agile relies on continuous customer feedback throughout the service lifecycle, not just during the initial stages. This ongoing collaboration ensures that the service meets evolving needs and expectations, which is key to delivering value. In conclusion, time boxing and self-organizing teams are Agile practices that complement ITIL's focus on improving service delivery and creating value through flexibility and collaboration. For each factor of customer experience CX, drag it to the appropriate boxes in the correct match column to match it against its description in the option column. An objective factor that can be measured, delivery time of a product. A subjective factor as it depends on individual preferences, website design and layout. Objective as it is a measurable and fixed factor. Price of a service. Subjective, as different customers may have different perceptions. Customer satisfaction with the product's look. Now, let's explain the reasoning behind these matches. First, delivery time of a product is an objective factor that can be measured. This is because delivery time is a standardized and quantifiable metric that can be tracked and compared. For example, a company can measure how long it takes to deliver a product from order placement to arrival, which is something measurable and fixed. Next, website design and layout is a subjective factor because it depends on individual preferences. What one person finds appealing or easy to navigate, another might not. For instance, some users may prefer a minimalist design, while others may appreciate a more detailed and content-heavy layout. Price of a service is also an objective factor as it is measurable and fixed. The cost of a service is typically agreed upon upfront and is consistent for all customers, making it a measurable and quantifiable factor. For example, if a subscription service costs $20 per month, that price is fixed and easily measurable. Finally, customer satisfaction with the product's look is subjective because it varies from person to person. Some customers may love the design of a product, while others may not like it as much. This perception depends on individual tastes and emotions, which are subjective. In summary, customer experience factors can be categorized as either objective or subjective, based on whether they are measurable or based on individual preferences. During a post-deployment review, a support analyst compiles system performance metrics, notes a spike in unresolved incidents, and forwards these insights for improvement planning. They also update the engineering team to request changes to certain components. Which value chain activity is the analyst primarily contributing to? A. Deliver and support. B. Engage. D. Plan. Correct answer is A. Deliver and support. Now, let's go ahead and explain the reasoning behind this answer. First, deliver and support is the correct value chain activity. This activity focuses on the ongoing service delivery, including gathering real-time feedback and initiating change requests. In this case, the support analyst is observing system performance, identifying issues like unresolved incidents, and forwarding insights to the appropriate teams for action. This is part of the service delivery and support process, which ensures that services are maintained and improved based on real-time data. Next, improve is incorrect in this context. While the analyst's insights may contribute to improvement planning, the improve activity typically focuses on analyzing performance data for ongoing improvements and optimizing processes. The analyst here is not yet involved in the actual improvement process, but is instead identifying issues for further action. Engage is also incorrect. This activity is more about engaging stakeholders and gathering their feedback, which is not the primary focus in this case. The analyst is focusing more on service delivery and operational data, rather than directly engaging with customers or stakeholders. Lastly, plan is incorrect. Plan is concerned with setting the overall strategy and direction of services, which doesn't align with the operational task of compiling performance data and initiating changes based on that data. In summary, the analyst is primarily contributing to the deliver and support activity by monitoring service performance, identifying issues, and initiating change requests to support ongoing service operations. Fill in the blanks by selecting the correct options from the drop-down menus. In the ITIL guiding principles, collaboration enhances decision-making and increases stakeholder commitment, while visibility fosters openness and reduces misunderstandings. Now let's explain each part of the answer. First, collaboration is the correct term. When people work together, especially across different departments or teams, they bring diverse perspectives and insights to the table. This leads to better decisions and helps in aligning stakeholders toward a common goal. For example, a cross-functional team working together on a project can identify challenges early on and address them collectively, improving the likelihood of success. Next, visibility is also the right choice. Visibility means having transparency in processes, decisions, and information, which helps reduce misunderstandings. When everyone is aware of what's happening in a project or service delivery, it fosters trust. For instance, when a company shares performance metrics and updates openly with its team, it helps everyone understand where improvements are needed and how they can contribute to success. On the other hand, complexity, secrecy, experimentation, and rigidity are incorrect. These factors go against the guiding principles of ITIL, as they can create barriers to open communication, decision-making, and collaboration. In summary, collaboration improves decision-making by bringing people together, and visibility ensures transparency, which in turn fosters trust and reduces misunderstandings. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. The ITIL service value system integrates key components to co-create value. Answer: true. Automation should be applied before any optimization to save time. Answer: false. Guiding principles change based on business unit or department. Customer experience is a valid part of understanding value. Now, let's go ahead and explain the reasoning behind these answers. First, the ITIL service value system integrates key components to co-create value is true. The service value system, SVS, is designed to bring together all components and activities to ensure that an organization can co-create value with its stakeholders. It helps to ensure that the right processes, people, and technologies are aligned toward creating value. Next, automation should be applied before any optimization to save time is false. Optimization should come before automation. Optimization focuses on improving processes to ensure that they are efficient, and then automation can be applied to further enhance these optimized processes. Applying automation without proper optimization may result in inefficiencies being automated. Guiding principles change based on business unit or department is false. ITIL's guiding principles are designed to be enduring and applicable across all areas of the organization. They serve as universal guidelines that support decision-making, not principles that change depending on business units or departments. Lastly, customer experience is a valid part of understanding value is true. Customer experience plays a crucial role in how value is perceived. Value isn't just about the service itself, but how the customer experiences it, including aspects like usability, reliability, and support. The better the experience, the higher the perceived value. In summary, the ITIL SVS is focused on co-creating value through integration. Optimization should come before automation. Guiding principles are consistent, and customer experience is a key factor in understanding value. Which two steps are part of the ITIL continual improvement model? Select two answers. A. Define measurable targets. B. Document service level agreements. C. Execute improvement actions. D. Authorize procurement requests. Correct answers are A. Define measurable targets. C. Execute improvement actions. Now let's go ahead and explain the reasoning behind these answers. First, define measurable targets is correct. This step ensures that improvement goals are clear and measurable, which is essential for tracking progress and aligning improvements with the organization's vision. For instance, setting specific measurable goals like reducing incident response time by 20% helps the organization focus on achievable outcomes and assess success effectively. Next, execute improvement actions is also correct. Once improvement opportunities are identified and planned, the next step is to execute the actions needed to implement those improvements. For example, if an organization plans to streamline a process, the actual execution could involve updating tools, retraining staff, or changing workflows. Document service level agreements, SLAs, is incorrect because SLAs are important for defining the level of service but are not part of the continual improvement model. The continual improvement model focuses on assessing and enhancing services, whereas SLAs primarily define expectations. Authorize procurement requests is incorrect as well. This is a business function related to purchasing goods or services, but not part of the continual improvement model, which is centered on ongoing service enhancement and performance. In summary, the ITIL continual improvement model includes steps like defining measurable targets and executing improvement actions to drive continual progress and enhance services. Fill in the blanks by selecting the correct options from the drop-down menus. A well-designed cloud management system should align infrastructure components with business goals to achieve intended outcomes. Now, let's explain the reasoning behind this answer. First, infrastructure components is the correct choice. These refer to the physical and virtual resources that support cloud services, such as hardware, middleware, and platforms. These are essential for running applications and services, and they must be aligned with business objectives to deliver the desired outcomes. For example, a company may need to invest in high-performance servers to meet its business goal of providing fast, reliable services to its customers. Next, business goals is the correct match. The infrastructure needs to support the broader objectives of the organization, such as improving service quality, reducing costs, or enhancing customer satisfaction. For example, if a business goal is to expand into new markets, the cloud infrastructure might need to be scalable and flexible to handle increased traffic and data demands. On the other hand, documentation, automation, service tickets, and scheduling are not the central focus of this alignment. While they play supporting roles, they do not directly reflect the strategic alignment between infrastructure and business goals. Documentation supports the understanding of infrastructure. Automation can help optimize performance. Service tickets are operational outputs, and scheduling pertains to resource timing. None of these are the primary elements for achieving business outcomes through infrastructure. In summary, a well-designed cloud management system must ensure that infrastructure components are aligned with business goals to drive success and achieve the desired outcomes for the organization. Match each value chain activity to its contribution from service level management. Each item may be used once, more than once, or not at all. Provides input for planning services and portfolio. Correct match enables ongoing dialogue and feedback with customers. Correct match, engage, informs design and transition of new or changed services. Correct match, design and transition. Sets expectations and objectives for operational support teams. Correct match. Deliver, drives improvements based on feedback and requirements. Correct match, improve. Now, let's go ahead and explain the reasoning behind these matches. First, provides input for planning services and portfolio is matched with plan. Service level management, SLM, contributes to the planning phase by analyzing performance trends and reviewing customer feedback. This input helps shape future services and ensures that the service portfolio meets the evolving needs of the business. Next, enables ongoing dialogue and feedback with customers, is matched with engage. SLM ensures that communication channels remain open with customers, gathering ongoing feedback. This continuous engagement helps make sure services are aligned with customer expectations, enabling both parties to address any concerns proactively. Informs design and transition of new or changed services is matched with design and transition. SLM uses customer input and past service data to guide the design and transition of new services or modifications to existing ones. For example, feedback on a service's performance might lead to a redesign to better meet customer expectations. Sets expectations and objectives for operational support teams, is matched with deliver and support. SLM defines the service level agreements, SLAs, to set clear expectations for operational teams. These SLAs specify the level of service to be delivered and guide teams on what is required to meet those standards, ensuring consistent service delivery. Finally, drives improvements based on feedback and requirements is matched with improve. SLM collects feedback and performance data, which it uses to identify areas for improvement. These insights are then used to make adjustments to the services, ensuring that they continue to meet customer needs and business goals. Retire is not relevant to service level management, as this function focuses on managing services throughout their life cycle, not retiring them. Procurement is also not a core responsibility of SLM. While procurement deals with acquiring resources or components for services, SLM is more focused on ensuring the services meet customer expectations and continuously improve. In summary, service level management plays an essential role in the ITIL value chain, ensuring services are planned, delivered, improved, and aligned with customer needs and performance standards. For each statement below, indicate whether it is true or false. Knowledge is simply documented information. False. Tacit and unstructured knowledge should also be captured and reused. Knowledge management helps improve efficiency in the obtain-build value chain activity. Knowledge is most useful when delivered without considering the user's context. Now, let's go ahead and explain the reasoning behind each of these answers. First, knowledge is simply documented information is false. Knowledge goes beyond just documented information. It is the contextualized use of information. For example, understanding how to apply certain data in specific situations is knowledge, not just having the data documented. Next, tacit and unstructured knowledge should also be captured and reused is true. Tacit knowledge refers to personal, experience-based knowledge that is often not formally documented. This kind of knowledge can be incredibly valuable and should be captured through methods like interviews, mentorships, or observation to ensure it is passed on and reused. Knowledge management helps improve efficiency in the obtain, build, value chain activity is true. By providing access to known solutions, best practices, and reusable content, knowledge management reduces duplication of effort and streamlines processes. For example, if there is an existing solution for a common issue, knowledge management ensures that this solution is easy to access and use, improving efficiency in service development. Finally, knowledge is most useful when delivered without considering the user's context is false. Knowledge must be tailored to the user's needs and context to be effective. For instance, technical documentation for an IT engineer would be different from a guide for an end user. Providing knowledge that considers the context ensures that the user can apply it properly. In summary, knowledge is more than just documented information. Capturing tacit knowledge is valuable, and effective knowledge management improves efficiency, especially when knowledge is delivered in the right context for the user. Fill in the blanks by selecting the correct options from the drop-down menus. Service-based budgeting models aim to capture the full cost of providing or consuming a service, enabling organizations to create sustainable funding models for long-term operations. Now, let's go ahead and explain the reasoning behind this answer. First, full cost is the correct choice. The full cost includes both direct and indirect expenses related to providing or consuming a service. For example, direct costs might include labor and materials, while indirect costs could involve overhead, such as administrative support or infrastructure costs. This comprehensive view of costs helps organizations understand the true financial requirements of their services. Next, funding models is also correct. A sustainable funding model ensures that the financial resources needed for long-term operations are available. This can involve setting appropriate pricing, securing budgets, or finding other financial support to maintain service delivery. For example, a government agency may rely on taxes, while a private company may generate revenue through service charges. On the other hand, project schedules, dashboards, etc., are not relevant to budgeting structures. These are tools used in project management and performance tracking, but they do not directly relate to capturing costs or creating financial plans for service delivery. In summary, service-based budgeting requires understanding the full cost of services and creating funding models to ensure long-term financial sustainability. For each statement below, indicate whether it is true or false. Scripts may be used during the initial contact to help diagnose simple incidents. True. All incidents, regardless of complexity, should be resolved using step-by-step procedures. Answer: false. Complex incidents usually require procedural instructions, not expert input. The service desk should avoid using scripts to reduce automation. Now, let's go ahead and explain the reasoning behind each of these answers. First, scripts may be used during the initial contact to help diagnose simple incidents is true. Scripts are helpful for quickly diagnosing and resolving common, simple incidents. For instance, if a user reports that their computer is slow, a script can guide the support staff through basic troubleshooting steps, helping them resolve the issue efficiently and consistently. Next, all incidents, regardless of complexity, should be resolved using step-by-step procedures is false. While step-by-step procedures are useful for simpler issues, complex incidents often require more adaptive and expert analysis. Some problems may require creativity or deep technical knowledge that goes beyond standard procedures. Complex incidents usually require procedural instructions, not expert input is false. ITIL emphasizes that complex incidents often need expert input rather than just procedural instructions. For example, diagnosing a network issue might require a senior engineer's expertise to identify and resolve the root cause, something that standard procedures may not cover. Finally, the service desk should avoid using scripts to reduce automation is false. In fact, scripts help improve automation by providing consistent and efficient responses to common issues. Avoiding scripts would go against best practices, as they help the service desk deliver faster, more accurate responses, reducing variability and enhancing service quality. In summary, scripts are useful for handling simple incidents, but complex issues often require expert intervention. ITIL encourages using scripts to improve consistency and efficiency, not avoiding them. Fill in the blanks by selecting the correct options from the drop-down menus. Incident management aims to restore service quickly and minimize impact on users. All incidents must be logged and managed using agreed procedures and prioritized according to business impact. Tools may use automation and knowledge to assist in diagnosis and recovery. Now let's explain the reasoning behind these answers. First, restore service quickly is the correct choice. The primary goal of incident management is to quickly restore normal service to minimize disruption. For example, if a company's email system goes down, the incident management process will aim to resolve it as quickly as possible to reduce downtime for users. Next, minimize impact is also correct. Incident management isn't just about resolving issues, but also about ensuring that any disruption is kept to a minimum. This could involve, for example, temporarily switching to backup systems to avoid further business interruptions. Logged and managed is the correct choice as well. Every incident must be logged and tracked according to established procedures. This structured tracking ensures that incidents are handled in a consistent way and that no incidents are overlooked. For instance, each incident might be assigned a unique ticket number to monitor its progress and resolution. Business impact is correct because incidents are prioritized based on their effect on business operations. Incidents that have a higher impact on critical business functions are dealt with more urgently than minor issues. For example, a network outage that affects an entire office would be prioritized over a single user's minor issue. Finally, automation and knowledge is correct. Tools that utilize automation and knowledge bases help the incident management team diagnose and resolve issues faster. For example, automated diagnostic tools can quickly identify common issues, and a knowledge base can provide solutions to frequently occurring problems. User escalation isn't the core objective of incident management, but rather part of the process for routing incidents to the appropriate level of support. Random assignment is incorrect because incidents are assigned based on specific categories, not randomly. Ticket deletion isn't allowed in incident management. All incidents must be recorded for tracking and resolution. Compliance review is part of audits, not real-time incident resolution. In summary, incident management focuses on quickly restoring services, minimizing impact, ensuring incidents are logged and tracked, and using tools like automation and knowledge to resolve issues efficiently. Fill in the blanks by selecting the correct options from the drop-down menus. To support organizational growth and transformation in the digital economy, workforce and talent management must address both emerging technologies and organizational change capabilities. Now let's explain the reasoning behind this answer. First, emerging technologies is the correct choice. As new technologies continue to reshape industries, it is essential for workforce and talent management to ensure that employees are equipped with the skills to adopt and leverage these technologies. For example, a company transitioning to cloud-based services needs to ensure that its employees are trained in using cloud platforms to stay competitive. Next, organizational change is also correct. Organizational growth and transformation often involve structural, cultural, or operational changes. Workforce and talent management must prepare employees to navigate these changes effectively. For instance, if a company undergoes a merger, staff must be prepared to adapt to new teams, workflows, and company values. On the other hand, compliance policies, budget forecasting, and outsourcing contracts are administrative concerns and do not directly relate to developing workforce capabilities. Similarly, vendor alignment pertains to managing external supplier relationships and is not the focus of internal talent strategies. In summary, to support growth and transformation, workforce and talent management must focus on preparing employees to adopt emerging technologies and effectively manage organizational change. A user submits a service request asking for urgent resolution of a system crash. What is the best action based on service request management principles? Select one answer. A. Treat it as a valid service request and fulfill it normally. B. Redirect it to incident management for appropriate handling. C. Add it to the service catalog for future requests. D. Escalate it as a change request due to its urgency. Correct answer is B. Redirect it to incident management for appropriate handling. Now, let's explain the reasoning behind this answer. First, redirect it to incident management for appropriate handling is the correct action. A system crash is considered an unplanned disruption, which falls under incident management, not service requests. Incident management is responsible for restoring normal service operation as quickly as possible and minimizing any disruption. For example, if a user experiences a system crash, it should be classified as an incident, and the incident management team should take over to resolve the issue. Next, treat it as a valid service request and fulfill it normally is incorrect. A service request is typically for planned and standard services, such as access to software or a password reset. A system crash being unplanned should be classified as an incident, not a request. Treating it as a service request would lead to delays and mismanagement. Add it to the service catalog for future requests is also incorrect. The service catalog includes offerings for standard requests and services, but a system crash is an issue that needs to be addressed immediately, not added to a catalog for future requests. Finally, escalate it as a change request due to its urgency is incorrect. Urgency alone does not qualify an issue to be a change request. A change request typically refers to modifications to the infrastructure or services, such as updates, upgrades, or improvements, rather than resolving incidents like a system crash. In summary, the best course of action is to redirect the issue to incident management, as system crashes are considered incidents and need to be handled accordingly for prompt resolution. A company is overwhelmed by the number of improvement methods available. It wants to ensure teams have a shared approach without limiting innovation. What strategy should it adopt? Select one answer. A. Adopt as many improvement methods as possible to cover all possibilities. B. Let each department choose its own model to improve independence. C. Standardize a few relevant methods but allow room for innovation. D. Ban older methods and mandate DevOps for all future improvements. Correct answer is C. Standardize a few relevant methods but allow room for innovation. Now let's explain the reasoning behind this answer. First, standardize a few relevant methods but allow room for innovation is the correct approach. The organization should focus on implementing a small set of core improvement methods that are effective and relevant to the business needs. This standardization ensures a shared approach across teams, helping them collaborate efficiently. At the same time, allowing room for innovation encourages teams to adapt new methods when necessary, fostering creativity and adaptability. For example, a company might standardize Agile or Lean methods for project management, but still allow teams to explore new tools or techniques for continuous improvement. Next, adopt as many improvement methods as possible to cover all possibilities is incorrect. Having too many improvement methods can lead to confusion and a lack of clarity. This could overwhelm the teams, making it difficult to focus on one cohesive approach. It could also reduce the effectiveness of collaboration, as different teams might work in conflicting ways. Let each department choose its own model to improve independence is also incorrect. While autonomy can be important, allowing each department to choose its own improvement methods can create fragmentation. This approach reduces collaboration across departments and can lead to inefficiencies and misalignment with organizational goals. Finally, ban older methods and mandate DevOps for all future improvements is not the best strategy. Mandating a single method like DevOps across all departments without considering the context can backfire. Not all organizations or teams may be suited to DevOps, and forcing its adoption may limit flexibility and overlook other suitable methods for improvement. In summary, the best strategy is to standardize a few relevant methods while allowing flexibility for innovation. This creates a unified approach while still fostering the creativity and adaptability needed for continuous improvement. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. Strategy management helps the plan activity by translating strategy into operational plans. Answer: true. The improve activity is isolated from the organization's overall strategy. The deliver and support activity benefits from strategy coordination across levels. Strategy management does not affect obtain build in any way. Now, let's go ahead and explain the reasoning behind each of these answers. First, strategy management helps the plan activity by translating strategy into operational plans is true. Strategy management provides the overarching goals and objectives, which are then translated into actionable and measurable operational plans. For example, a company's strategic goal of improving customer satisfaction may be translated into specific operational plans focused on enhancing service quality and response times. Next, the improve activity is isolated from the organization's overall strategy is false. The improve activity actually uses strategic objectives to evaluate and prioritize changes. Improvements are always aligned with the broader strategy to ensure that changes contribute to the overall goals of the organization. For instance, if the strategy involves increasing efficiency, the improve activity would prioritize process optimizations that align with this goal. The deliver and support activity benefits from strategy coordination across levels is true. When strategy is coordinated across different levels of the organization, it ensures that the operational delivery aligns with the strategic objectives. For example, if the overall strategy focuses on customer centricity, the deliver and support activities will focus on ensuring high-quality service delivery that meets customer needs. Finally, strategy management does not affect obtain build in any way is false. The obtain build activities must follow the strategic direction to ensure value delivery. Strategy sets the direction for which capabilities need to be built or acquired, ensuring that the organization's investments and developments align with its goals. For instance, if the strategy calls for expanding digital capabilities, the obtain build activities will focus on acquiring the necessary technologies and building the required capabilities. In summary, strategy management is integral to planning, improving, delivering, and building within an organization, ensuring that all activities are aligned with the overall strategy to achieve the intended outcomes. Indicate whether each of the following statements is true or false. Workarounds should always be created after full problem analysis. Answer: false. Problem management should consider all 4 dimensions of service management. Answer: true. A known error may remain unresolved if the workaround is acceptable. Answer: approving and implementing changes is part of problem management. Let's break down each statement. First, workarounds can actually be created before completing full problem analysis. Sometimes a temporary solution is needed right away to mitigate the issue while further analysis continues. Once the root cause is identified, the workaround can be refined or replaced. Next, problem management indeed needs to consider all 4 dimensions: people, processes, technology, and partners. These dimensions help organizations take a holistic approach when addressing the root cause of problems and ensure that solutions are comprehensive. Now, a known error can remain unresolved if a workaround is effective enough. For instance, if a workaround continues to serve its purpose and eliminates the issue temporarily, the company may choose to leave the error unresolved, especially if the cost or complexity of fixing it isn't justified. Finally, approving and implementing changes is not a part of problem management. These responsibilities fall under the change control practice, which ensures that changes are carefully planned, assessed, and executed across the organization. In summary, workarounds can be implemented early on. Problem management involves all service management dimensions. Known errors can remain unresolved if workarounds are effective, and change approval is managed by the change control practice. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. Configuration information may be provided by external parties such as suppliers. Answer: true. The CMS cannot store data used for automated infrastructure creation. Engaging regulators and partners may involve sharing configuration information. Answer: all configuration data must be collected and stored before it's needed. Answer: false. Let's break this down. First, configuration information may be provided by external parties such as suppliers is true. External suppliers often provide configuration data related to the services or components they deliver. For example, a cloud service provider may provide configuration settings or templates for the environments they host. Next, the CMS cannot store data used for automated infrastructure creation is false. A configuration management system, CMS, can indeed store data that is used for infrastructure automation, such as infrastructure as code. This allows for automated provisioning of environments, improving efficiency. Engaging regulators and partners may involve sharing configuration information is true. Sharing configuration data with regulators and partners is often necessary for compliance, reporting, and collaboration. For instance, a regulated industry may need to share security configurations with a compliance authority to meet legal requirements. Finally, all configuration data must be collected and stored before it's needed is false. It is often more efficient to collect configuration data only when it is required. For example, instead of collecting all configuration data upfront, it can be gathered just in time, reducing unnecessary overhead and ensuring that data is relevant at the time of need. In summary, configuration data can come from external suppliers, CMS can support automated infrastructure creation, sharing configuration info may be necessary with stakeholders, and not all configuration data needs to be collected up front. A multinational organization wants to streamline its support channels across different time zones. They plan to let staff operate from multiple locations while ensuring complex routing and escalation capabilities. The organization also wants agents to focus more on customer experience instead of low-level repetitive tasks. Which two configurations or strategies best support this plan? Select two answers. A, virtual service desk. B, in-person walk-in desks. C, robotic process automation. C, D, dedicated on-site team. E, daily shift-based rotation in one location. Correct answers are A, virtual service desk. C, robotic process automation, RPA. Now let's explain the reasoning behind these answers. First, virtual service desk is correct. A virtual service desk allows for geographically distributed teams, enabling support across multiple time zones. This approach utilizes cloud-based systems, which means agents can work from different locations, offering 24/7 support without being limited by physical office hours. For example, a customer in the US could have their issue resolved by an agent in India while the US office is closed. Next, robotic process automation, RPA, is also correct. RPA automates repetitive low-level tasks such as data entry or ticket routing, allowing agents to focus on higher-value customer interactions. For instance, RPA can automatically classify tickets and route them to the appropriate team, freeing agents from manual tasks and enhancing their ability to handle complex customer issues. On the other hand, in-person walk-in desks is incorrect. While useful in certain situations, in-person desks do not support scalability across time zones or help reduce repetitive tasks via automation. They also limit the organization's ability to provide 24/7 support. A dedicated on-site team is also not the best option. It contradicts the goal of supporting staff across multiple locations and time zones. A centralized team would not be able to provide the flexibility and responsiveness that a distributed model offers. Daily shift-based rotation in one location does not align with the goal of geographic distribution and automation. Shifting agents between locations still limits the support capabilities and flexibility of the support model, especially across multiple time zones. In summary, virtual service desk and RPA are the best options for streamlining support across time zones and improving customer experience by reducing repetitive tasks. Which two responsibilities are typically retained by the consumer in a PaaS model? Select two answers. A, managing the operating system. B, controlling the underlying hardware. C. Deploying applications, D. Configuring hosting settings. Correct answers are C. Deploying applications, D. Configuring hosting settings. Now let's explain the reasoning behind these answers. First, deploying applications is correct. In a platform as a service, PaaS model, the platform provides the environment and tools needed for developers to deploy their applications. The consumer developer is responsible for deploying their own code and managing the app's functionality, but they don't need to manage the underlying infrastructure. Next, configuring hosting settings is also correct. Consumers can configure application-level settings, such as scaling options or database connections, but they do not control the underlying infrastructure or hardware. For example, they can choose how their application behaves within the platform, but cannot adjust the operating system or the physical hardware. On the other hand, managing the operating system is incorrect because in a PaaS model, the provider manages the operating system. The consumer doesn't need to worry about patching or maintaining the OS as it's part of the platform provided by the vendor. Controlling the underlying hardware is also incorrect. In PaaS, the hardware is fully managed by the provider and consumers don't have access to it. They are only concerned with managing their applications, not the physical infrastructure. In summary, in a PaaS model, the consumer retains responsibility for deploying applications and configuring hosting settings, while the provider handles the underlying infrastructure and operating systems. What do all management practices in ITIL have in common according to the service value system? Select one answer. A. They must be implemented using ITIL automation tools. B. They rely on the 4 dimensions of service management. C. They require approval from service consumers. D. They are only used in incident management processes. Correct answer is B. They rely on the 4 dimensions of service management. Now, let's explain the reasoning behind these answers. First, they rely on the 4 dimensions of service management is the correct answer. According to the ITIL Service Value System, SVS, all management practices are influenced by the 4 dimensions: organizations and people, information and technology, partners and suppliers, and value streams and processes. These dimensions provide a holistic approach to service management, ensuring that all aspects of the service lifecycle are considered. For example, the success of a practice like change management depends not only on processes, but also on how people are organized, the technology used, and the relationships with partners and suppliers. Next, they must be implemented using ITIL automation tools is incorrect. While automation tools can support practices, they are not a mandatory requirement for implementing ITIL practices. ITIL practices can be carried out manually or with other tools depending on the organization's needs and maturity. They require approval from service consumers is incorrect. Not all ITIL practices require direct approval from service consumers. While practices like service level management or change management may involve consumer input or approval, many practices such as incident management do not require consumer approval. Lastly, they are only used in incident management processes is incorrect. ITIL practices span across various stages of the service lifecycle, including strategy, design, transition, operation, and continual improvement, not just incident management. In summary, all ITIL management practices are connected through the 4 dimensions of service management, ensuring a comprehensive and balanced approach to delivering and managing services. Which 3 practices are most closely linked to organizational change management? Select 3 answers. A. Project management. B. Measurement and reporting. C. Workforce and talent management. D. Asset compliance tracking. Correct answers are A. Project management, B. Measurement and reporting, C. Workforce and talent management. Now, let's explain the reasoning behind these answers. First, project management is closely linked to organizational change management. Change initiatives are often executed through projects, and effective project management ensures that these changes are implemented successfully. For example, when a company decides to roll out a new software system, project management practices help plan, execute, and track the change process. Next, measurement and reporting are also key to change management. By measuring the success of a change and reporting on progress, organizations can validate and reinforce the value of the change. For example, after implementing a new process, measuring how well it improves efficiency can help communicate the success of the change and guide further improvements. Workforce and talent management is another crucial practice. Organizational change often requires employees to develop new skills or take on new roles. Workforce and talent management ensures that the right people with the right skills are in place to support the change. For instance, when adopting new technology, the workforce may need training to use it effectively. Finally, asset compliance trackings is not directly related to organizational change management. While tracking assets and ensuring compliance are important business practices, they do not play a central role in the process of managing organizational change. In summary, project management, measurement and reporting, and workforce and talent management are the three practices most closely linked to organizational change management, helping ensure that change is executed effectively, measured for success, and supported by the right people. An organization operates in a rapidly evolving market. The leadership wants to remain competitive by enabling employees to explore innovative ideas while ensuring these efforts align with company goals. Select two answers. A. Ensuring strategy includes guiding principles and purpose. B. Relying only on traditional rigid strategic planning. C. Using strategy as a filter for evaluating innovative ideas. D. Avoiding changes to strategy to maintain consistency. Answers are A. Ensuring strategy includes guiding principles and purpose. C. Using strategy as a filter for evaluating innovative ideas. Now let's explain the reasoning behind these answers. First, ensuring strategy includes guiding principles and purpose is correct. When strategy includes clear principles and purpose, it provides employees with a framework to innovate while staying aligned with the company's overall direction. For example, if a company's strategic purpose is focused on sustainability, employees are encouraged to explore innovative ideas that align with environmentally friendly practices. Next, using strategy as a filter for evaluating innovative ideas is also correct. While innovation is essential, it must align with the organization's strategic objectives to be truly effective. For example, a company might have a strategy focused on improving customer experience, so innovative ideas that improve customer service would be prioritized over others. On the other hand, relying only on traditional rigid strategic planning is incorrect. In a rapidly changing market, rigid planning can limit flexibility and adaptability. Organizations need the agility to adjust strategies in response to new opportunities or challenges, which traditional strategic planning may not provide. Finally, avoiding changes to strategy to maintain consistency is incorrect. Strategies must evolve to remain relevant in dynamic environments. For example, a tech company may need to update its strategy to keep up with new technological advancements, ensuring that innovation remains aligned with current market trends. In summary, a strategy that includes guiding principles and serves as a filter for evaluating innovative ideas helps organizations stay competitive while ensuring innovation aligns with company goals. What are two key responsibilities of the supplier management practice in the deliver and support activity? Select two answers. A. Engaging with all suppliers. B. Managing supplier performance against agreed targets. C. Defining warranty clauses before contracts are signed. D. Translating strategy into operational policies. Correct answers are A. Engaging with all suppliers. B. Managing supplier performance against agreed targets. Now, let's explain the reasoning behind these answers. First, engaging with all suppliers is correct. Supplier management is responsible for maintaining relationships with suppliers across the entire service lifecycle. This includes negotiating contracts, managing ongoing relationships, and ensuring suppliers meet their commitments. For example, a company may engage with its cloud service provider to ensure that agreed service levels are maintained throughout the contract. Next, managing supplier performance against agreed targets is also correct. Once the service is live, supplier performance must be continuously monitored against agreed-upon targets, such as uptime, support response time, or quality standards. For instance, if a vendor is providing outsourced support services, their performance is measured against the agreed KPIs to ensure they meet the expectations outlined in the contract. Defining warranty clauses before contracts are signed is incorrect. Warranty clauses are part of contract negotiations, but managing these clauses happens during the contract's lifecycle, not as part of the supplier management practice in the deliver and support phase. Translating strategy into operational policies is incorrect. This responsibility falls under strategy management or service planning, not supplier management. Supplier management is focused on managing supplier relationships and performance, rather than translating high-level strategy into operational policies. In summary, the key responsibilities of supplier management in the deliver and support activity are engaging with all suppliers and managing supplier performance against agreed targets to ensure the delivery of high-quality services. Which two considerations help balance flexibility and control in cloud asset management? Select two answers. A. Allowing unlimited provisioning of cloud services. B. Funding available to create and remove instances as needed. C. Understanding the cost of each cloud usage instance. D. Running cloud services without linking them to products or business units. Correct answers are B. Funding available to create and remove instances as needed. C. Understanding the cost of each cloud usage instance. Now let's explain the reasoning behind these answers. First, funding available to create and remove instances as needed is correct. Having a flexible funding model allows organizations to scale their cloud services up or down as needed. For example, a company may need to quickly provision additional cloud resources for a marketing campaign, but can just as easily scale down after the campaign ends, ensuring that costs are controlled and only necessary resources are used. Next, understanding the cost of each cloud usage instance is also correct. Knowing the costs associated with each cloud instance allows organizations to monitor usage and avoid unnecessary spending. For instance, if a cloud service instance is running 24/7, but it's only needed for a specific time during the day, understanding its cost can lead to optimizations, such as shutting it down during off-peak hours to save money. Allowing unlimited provisioning of cloud services is incorrect. While cloud services offer flexibility, allowing unlimited provisioning can result in uncontrolled costs. Without proper monitoring and governance, this approach can lead to wastage and excessive spending. Running cloud services without linking them to products or business units is also incorrect. Without linking cloud services to specific products or business units, it becomes difficult to track usage and allocate costs accurately. This reduces accountability and makes it harder to ensure that cloud resources are used effectively. In summary, balancing flexibility and control in cloud asset management requires careful consideration of funding availability and cost awareness to ensure scalability without overspending. You are responsible for managing incident response during a major IT outage. You want to alert users across different departments quickly while allowing specific stakeholder groups to reply or request targeted support. Which two service desk channels would be most effective in this scenario? A. Targeted messaging through social media platforms. B. Walk-in support desk. C. Public peer-to-peer forums. D. Email and follow-up survey. E. Stakeholder-specific messaging tools. Correct answers are A. Targeted messaging through social media platforms. E. Stakeholder-specific messaging tools. Now let's explain the reasoning behind these answers. First, targeted messaging through social media platforms is an effective option. Social media allows for quick, wide-reaching communication, which is essential during an IT outage. Platforms like Twitter or Slack can be used to send urgent updates to users across departments, ensuring that everyone is informed quickly. Additionally, social media platforms can allow users to engage and ask for support in real time. Next, stakeholder-specific messaging tools is also a good choice. These tools, such as Slack channels, Microsoft Teams, or custom messaging apps, allow for targeted communication with specific stakeholder groups. For example, the IT team or senior management can be notified directly and can respond promptly without overwhelming the entire organization. Walk-in support desk is not ideal in this case because it doesn't support quick, widespread notifications. It's more suited for in-person interactions and would not be effective in alerting users quickly across different departments during a major outage. Public peer-to-peer forums are not a good choice for urgent notifications. They are less direct and may not reach the right users or deliver messages in a timely manner. Additionally, they don't provide the ability for targeted communication. Email and follow-up survey is slower compared to other options and is not the best choice for urgent communication during an incident. While email is effective for detailed communication, it is not the fastest way to alert users during an outage. In summary, targeted messaging through social media platforms and stakeholder-specific messaging tools are the most effective ways to communicate quickly and allow targeted support during a major IT outage. Your organization is moving from on-premise infrastructure to a cloud-based service model. The finance team is struggling with traditional capital expenditure budgeting and outdated procurement rules. What actions would best align financial management with this transition? Select two answers. A. Update procurement policies to support variable price models. B. Continue using fixed IT budgets without adjustment. C. Adopt subscription or pay-as-you-go cost models funded by OPEX. D. Delay migration until pricing is predictable and locked in annually. Correct answers are A. Update procurement policies to support variable price models. C. Adopt subscription or pay-as-you-go cost models funded by OPEX. Now, let's explain the reasoning behind these answers. First, updating procurement policies to support variable price models is correct. Cloud services operate on a usage-based model, which means that costs can fluctuate depending on the level of service usage. Updating procurement policies to reflect these variable price models allows the organization to be more flexible and responsive to changing needs, ensuring that finance teams can adapt to this new dynamic pricing structure. Next, adopting subscription or pay-as-you-go cost models funded by OPEX is also correct. Cloud services are often funded through operational expenditure, OPEX, which contrasts with the traditional capital expenditure, CapEx, model used for on-premise infrastructure. The pay-as-you-go model aligns perfectly with cloud services, where you only pay for what you use. This flexibility allows the finance team to scale costs as needed without committing to large upfront capital investments. Continuing to use fixed IT budgets without adjustment is incorrect. This approach limits the organization's ability to respond to the flexible, consumption-based nature of cloud services. The dynamic nature of cloud pricing requires more adaptable budgeting practices. Delaying migration until pricing is predictable and locked in annually is also incorrect. Cloud pricing models are intentionally dynamic and usage-based, and waiting for fixed pricing may delay the benefits of cloud adoption. Flexibility and scalability are key advantages of cloud services, and delaying the transition would hinder those benefits. In summary, updating procurement policies and adopting subscription or pay-as-you-go cost models funded by OPEX will align financial management with the cloud-based service model, allowing for flexibility, scalability, and more efficient financial planning.